It is about this guy who phoned his lawyer. And then the voice on the phone says, Cohen, Cohen, and Cohen. Good afternoon, what can I do for you? The guy said, can I speak with Mr. Cohen? He's out of town. Can I speak to the other Mr. Cohen? He's sick today. Can I speak to the other Mr. Cohen? Speaking. I want to talk to you today about I didn't know that. How many times in your life have you said, oh, I didn't know that? How many of you? At least one said, I didn't know that. Okay? And for some reason, every time I say this, I didn't know that, I have this flashback, this ridiculous flashback to my former congregation in Chile. And I remember this because they have this huge auditorium there. It was huge. And it had all this carpet that it was, how can I say this nicely? Awful. It was terrible. There were bubbles underneath. People were complaining all the time when they had a bar mitzvah celebration or a wedding and everything. And they said, you need to change the carpet. And the answer was always the same. We don't have money to do that now. Okay? And people keep complaining about that awful carpet, right? They spend all the thousands and thousands of dollars to put together a celebration. And that carpet was, I still remember it. Still remember. Anyway, one day they finally decided that they couldn't delay this anymore and they are going to take the expense to replace the carpet. So what happened is when they removed the carpet, guess what was under the carpet? The most beautiful, expensive, exquisite, and exclusive hardwood floor. And they didn't know that. It was such a masterpiece that I remember after they discovered that, they brought an expert to say, you know, what do you think about this? And actually they were able to realize, to find out who designed that. Because it's not just the material, but the design. And it was so magnificent that I remember that it was a very famous brand of floor wax from Chile that they actually paid the synagogue a lot of money to shoot a commercial there. And I remember they have this like a Russian dancers dancing there, and it was all about to say how wonderful the wax can leave the floor. And it was a floor that they never knew they had. Never knew they have. So, and I was always thinking, that, how many times it happened in our lives, right? That we complain about a situation in our lives. We complain, we can't stand it anymore, until one day we realize that the solution was always there, and we didn't know that until somebody point that out. There are many examples like that. I have another example that I remember, and that involves one of my colleagues. He's a Hazan in Boston right now. Okay? So when he moved from Argentina to Boston, and I met him probably 3 years after the move. We saw each other again. We were very good friends in Argentina. And I asked him, how is everything there? It's fantastic, but he said, there is one problem. I cannot find a good vocal coach for myself. So it's been 3 years. I feel my voice, it's not the same. I cannot sing the way I used to sing before I left Argentina because I cannot find the right teacher. And I said to him, you know, I hear you. It's very difficult to find a vocal coach. But meanwhile, what you can do is there is these CDs that I use to warm up and there's, you know, and to train a little bit your voice. You can do it when you drive your car. And I said, which one? This one. And I mentioned the person who put that together. And he said, yeah, I have it. You gave it to me 5 years ago. See, he had it. He didn't know it. He didn't know he had it. And he started to exercise with that. And he called me once, said that his voice was a great shape again until eventually he found a vocal coach. Everybody happy. But again, it reminds me how many times the solution was there all the time. And we didn't know that. Back to the Parsha. Why back to the Parsha? Because this week's Parsha, at the very beginning, Yaakov left his home. Vayetzei Yaakov. Yaakov left. but mostly he was invited to leave. Let's put it that way. It's not that he left the house willingly. He had to, otherwise Esau was going to kill him at any time. So he escaped. He escaped out of there, and he went to a faraway land. A land that he probably heard stories about it, but he didn't know anything about it. We don't realize about that in these days, because I don't know if it happens to you, that you're planning a holiday. You're planning a vacation. Let's say you want to go to Mexico. What do you do first? Huh? But you go to the internet, you can see photos, you can read testimonials, you can watch videos about it. So whenever you go, you have an idea what to expect when you go there. Good luck in the days of Jacob without internet and without too many people maybe that they live in that town. Can you imagine? And because I realize this, even with technology today, people who goes to a new place and they have all this time to research, they watch videos, they read testimonials, you name it, and they still have anxiety before they go, said, well, what if we don't like it, right? Even with all the advantage that we have in this day that you can figure out what to expect, we are still go a little anxious there. I can't even imagine the anxiety that Jacob had to endure to go to a place that he never been there before, and it was impossible, virtually impossible, to imagine what to expect. So I was trying to go through a list of Jacob's feelings at the time that he had to leave. Number one, probably fear, right? Because it's not going to a place, it's not, across the corner. It's a long way. You will see when he was coming back, at the end of the parsha, you will read that even, it took more than 7 days, because at the 7th day, coming back home from that place, Laban found him. So you can imagine, right, how long was the journey from his house to the other place. So fear, he was afraid. Who knows what to expect? You can have bandits, you have probably with the weathers, you can have animals along the way. So he was probably afraid. He was anxious, he didn't know the place. Maybe he left the house with a little bit of a depression. He didn't want to leave. He had to leave to preserve his life. Think how you will feel if that's your situation. He probably, there are a few things we had to add. Loneliness, he was alone, nobody came with him. Insecurities, and there is one that nobody talks about, that is poverty. He grew up in a very wealthy house, and we will see, because it's very clear when he arrived to his destination, he had nothing with him. He left with whatever he was wearing, and that's it. All of a sudden, he was a poor man, and he had to deal with that. So how will you feel if you have to go through all that list of feelings? Probably not so good, not so difficult to keep moving forward with all those feelings inside. But then something happened. It said at the 3rd day of the journey, it is, but according to the Midrash, it was at the 3rd day of the journey, he arrived to, we don't know where, the Torah says, the place, Hamakom, right? No name, Hamakom. What is Hamakom? Different theories. One said the Torah doesn't say the name because it should be clear to the reader what the place is. So if we have to guess based on that hint, it should be Mount Moriah, where Abraham almost sacrificed Isaac. And we know that Abraham traveled 3 days to go there. Okay, that's how we know that this Makom perhaps is that place. But also Makom, I don't know if you know that, is one of the names of God. When you go to a funeral, we comfort the mourners by saying, Hamakom yenachem etchem. May God, Makom in this context, comfort you. But Makom means place, but also could mean a name of God, but it's not a defined name of God. Okay? And it says, the story, that in that place, Hamakom, Jacob slept. And then in the morning, after the dream, remember the angels going up and down, and the stairs to heaven and everything. When he woke up, he said the famous phrase, Yesh Adonai v'makom hazeh, v'anochi lo yadati. He says, there is God in this place. And I didn't know that. All of a sudden, something is going to change in Jacob. But not because the circumstances changed. He was still in the same place. He was still in the middle of the desert. He was still on this impossible journey. But something changed. Why? Because he realized that God was always with him, and it took to him this long to realize that. And now that he knows that they have what it takes to undergo all those difficult situations. He was a different man. He had the solution with him, and he didn't know that until that moment. So, and it's interesting because also God reassured Jacob after the dream, saying, I will be with you in your journey. So it's not just something that I'm with you right now in this particular situation that you are having, but I will be in future situations as well. And this is something that happens to all of us. Let me explain what I'm saying. Sometimes we go through difficult situations. We pray to God. And then we feel that God answered our prayers, right? It happens sometimes in life. And then we say, like Jacob, God is here and I didn't know that. But eventually, we keep moving forward and something else happened. This time we pray to God and we feel that God didn't answer our prayer, so we say God is not here. So God, knowing that mentality, told Jacob, the same way that I'm with you right now, it's going to be the same me being with you in the future when you have to go through different challenges. So this is something like we also have to realize, because I was trying to go through a list of things that we, as a people of Israel, have to go through in these days. For example, we feel anxious, we feel fear, we feel sometimes depressed, etc. when we read about Israel. When we read about what is going on in Syria, we feel, nervous about it. About the anti-Semitism everywhere. About the election in the United States. About the climate changes in the world. Lots of things make me anxious, make me fearless. So let me tell you, the same thing that Jacob figured out back then. Yesh Adonai v'makom hazeh v'anochi lo yadati. Even then, with all the insecurities that we have, God is there with you. In fact, God's been there with you all this time, even if you didn't realize that. The challenge for all of that is to make the discovery that Jacob made. And sometimes I believe that this discovery from Jacob happened at the third day because it's not automatic. It's not that you want to feel the presence of God and you're going to achieve it right away. It doesn't work that way. Sometimes it takes time. For some people, longer than others. But it should be, because I believe it's the Jewish way. It should be our priority to try to feel the presence of God as a helper to get away from all those negative feelings that sometimes they dragged us down and don't let us move forward and to shine the way we know we can shine in the world. And as we do that, as we recognize the hand of God in our lives, let's hear that voice of God that said to Jacob, and is telling us, I will be with you no matter what you have to face in the future. Shabbat Shalom.